Well, because the quarterback also understands that open is open. I don't care if it's Deebo Samuel or it's Dante Pettis.
It all starts with Fields. Fields has to be better. We know this. The processing is too long. We've said it from the get-go. He has guys open. He needs to plant that back foot and rip it. Throw the ball. Find DJ Moore. Find these guys who are open. We said it with Mitch, too. Mitch had Allen Robinson. Mitch, he's open right here in the middle of the field. Find him. Throw the football. But are they making it as easy as possible on Fields? Are they doing this on purpose? Do they want to see Fields operate only from the pocket? Greg Olsen reminded us that while he rushed for over 1,000 yards and you maybe don't want him to run as much, not to take away his greatest strength. This was from a couple of months ago, not this last time before the Packer game, but Olsen joined us during the offseason. Remember, he played with Cam Newton when Cam won his most valuable player, and he was a dual threat quarterback when he could throw it and he could run it. And Olsen, now the lead analyst for Fox. Does he have the game? Is he doing the Bears Chiefs again?
I don't know.
Because they're nationally televised.
Is it?
I don't know if it's Fox or CBS.
Fox game of the week.
Yeah.
So then it would have to be Olsen and Burkhardt.
So Olsen reminded us of this. Don't forget about Justin running the football. And what did he rush for yesterday? 3 yards?
I think it ended up with 4 carries for 3 yards, but I think there were 3 like true runs.
And so here was Olsen with us a few months ago.
For whatever reason, the NFL fan base and the media and whoever you want to put into that bucket, when they look at quarterbacks who run and when quarterbacks who make plays with their feet, whether it's off scramble, off script, or it's designed, whether it's designed option, designed keep, a lot of the things that we saw Chicago do with Justin last year. Whichever one of those cases, we have this we jump to the conclusion that just because he runs, it's because they're unable to play from the pocket. They're unable to do a lot of the more quote-unquote prototypical quarterback things. And I don't think that's the case with Justin. So I think there needs to be a balance both within and outside the organization where they say, we're going to continue to play to Justin's strengths, which is as an athlete, but along those, we're going to continue to develop him as a passer. And one does not have to take away from the other. You just have to do it in a smart way. So I think the biggest thing they need to do, continue to develop the on-rhythm passing game, the on-time passing game, both pre- and post-snap declaration, decision-making, being on time with the ball, understanding what looks defenses are giving both when they're lining up and then post-snap with the disguise. Like, as he continues to progress in those areas, don't force-feed that in lieu of doing what his strengths are, right? As I always used to tell young players, never lose what you hang your hat on. Whatever you hang your hat on, always be great at that as you build the other things in your game. So I would say the same thing to Justin. Continue to be a playmaker. Continue to be a game changer with the ball in your hands. The year he had last year was incredible what he did with the ball. He was really one of the only threats on the team. As he develops that passing game, the more traditional passing game, it'll just make him that much more dangerous of a player. He can be both. One does not have to necessarily take away from the other.
I love that. So, that threat is what makes him great.
Yeah, so don't handcuff him now, right? Everybody has this thing that, you want to reinvent. Oh, in order to make him a pocket passer, we have to force him to only play from the pocket. I guess that's to a degree true, but if you have a player whose strengths are A, B, and C, as you're trying to build up D, keep A, B, and C as a threat because he's damn good at it.
Yeah.
Right? Don't all of a sudden try to reinvent the guy. You drafted the guy. You know who he is. There's a lot of room for improvement in the traditional passing game, and that's fine to acknowledge. But he's really good at a lot of other things too. So keep him good while you continue to build the rest of his game. I believe that's for any position, right? I believe that's for a speed wide receiver. Yeah, he's got to be better in and out of his breaks. Maybe he doesn't catch the ball great. But I'll tell you what, while I'm teaching him to run dig routes and I'm teaching him to use his hands, you best believe I'm going to send him on 6 deep balls a game because that's what he does. You know what I mean? So I think NFL coaches and, to a degree, organizations have a hard time understanding that. The teams that do it best are the teams that play to their players' strengths as they continue to build up their weaknesses.
I love when he said it then, and I love it even more now because it was almost like he forecasted what the Bears were possibly going to do. Yesterday looked like they only wanted him to play from the pocket.
I think they do need to give him more quarterback run calls. But sometimes, too, their running game is a read option. And defenses are defending them differently this year as well. So when he puts the ball in the belly of Khalil Herbert, sometimes last year the end was crashing down and he'd take the ball and run. Well, I mean, these defensive coordinators got wise to get their ass kicked by him running the football last year. So what these defensive ends are doing now is they're staying at home. And if that's the read, and the read is to keep it in the belly of the running back, Justin's not taking it and keeping it because defenses have adjusted to him. Now, that doesn't mean you can't design some quarterback runs, but I think teams have adjusted to what they saw last year, and that may take some of his, rushing totals away from him. That's just the nature of the beast. Look, I could give you the Mitch Trubisky game plan. We could cut the field in half, and we could roll to the right or roll to the left and just focus on that. But at the end of the day, that ceiling is it's an artificial ceiling.
Right, and then where are you going with that? And then what are you learning about Justin with that?
Right, so I get it, and there's some frustration that I have about some of the stuff I'm seeing. Are they putting him in position to take advantage of what he does? Well, maybe the defense is adjusting, and that's why he's leaving the ball and making the right choice by leaving it in the running back's gut. Could they do more? Yes, but they also have to find out if he can function from the pocket. If you go to the Mitch Trubisky escape route in week 3, I don't know if you're doing yourself or your team any long-term benefit. What you're doing is you're trying to put a Band-Aid on a head wound. Now, I would also get him out of the pocket. Easier said than done because teams are being more disciplined. But 2 of his best throws, in my humble opinion, the last 2 weeks, or 2 of the best plays where he's most comfortable and he actually is thriving, was the rollout to the right early in the game against the Packers where he threw the ball to Mooney on the move. Went to the side. I thought the throw to Cole Kmet yesterday was a fantastic throw.
Got to be catch.
Cole's got to secure that ball. But what is the similarity? He's outside of the pocket. He's throwing the ball on the move. For whatever reason, he's more comfortable and he's more accurate throwing the football when he's on the move. So if I'm coordinating him, I'm going to try to take advantage of that. But there's only so much you can do in some aspects as well. We all want the coordinator to just put Justin in a position to take advantage of what he does. Well, okay, we're going to do that. But we also got to do this. And if he doesn't do this well, then we limit what we can do, and we're putting an artificial ceiling on our offense.
Phil in Rogers Park, you're on ESPN 1000. What's up, Phil?
Hey, guys. Great to talk with you again.
Good to hear from you.
I got a few different points for you, so I'll be as quick as I can. First of all, I completely agree with everything you just said. It's nuanced. Obviously, Fields has to be better, but completely agree with what Greg Olsen has to say. And then just from a macro standpoint, guys, I look at this team, over $100 million in cap space this past year. They're the number 1 overall pick, arguably the most valuable asset a team can have in terms of trade capital outside of having a franchise quarterback. And you still are a bottom 5 offensive line unit so far this year, and very clearly the worst defensive line in terms of talent in the NFL. And just from a macro standpoint, Sylvie, you always talked about it starts at the top. It's completely true. I look back, I think about before Poles and Eberflus got hired, I think about the committee that was assembled. It was George McCaskey, Bill Polian, who's not employed by the team, Tanisha Wade, and Soup Campbell, who for whatever reason was let go by Ryan Poles after he got the job. At that time, they had been interviewing head coaching candidates prior to finalizing any general manager being named. At that point, they had assembled a head coaching finalist list. Eberflus was on that list. And then Poles comes in and interviews Eberflus, Dan Quinn, and Nathaniel Hackett at the time. But the issue being is that they clearly had a favorite that they were going with. And as we know already, Trace Armstrong both represents Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus. So, and then you hire Kevin Warren, the president, where in reality it should be, as you've said many times, Sylvie,
right.
The owner hires the president hires the GM hires the coach.
It's always backwards. It's always backwards.
Exactly. And we have a broken system again. So now,
what did we do before? We drafted the quarterback. We fired the general manager. And then we hired new general managers to inherit the quarterback, right? Just like then we hire the coach and the general manager, and then we hire the president who inherits those two. We always do it backwards.
Exactly.
Well, I think this time, if in fact you have another miserable season, I don't think that Kevin Warren will have the patience that predecessors have had. I think you will see him be more assertive and make some difficult decisions, if in fact that happens.
Yeah, I would certainly hope so. And the thing is, guys, is that, if we're just evaluating this coaching staff, nobody's going to convince me that if Sean McVay was the head coach and had his staff, or if Pete Carroll was the head coach and had his staff, or Kyle Shanahan had his staff with Justin Fields and the players on this roster, that they wouldn't be in a far better position to do well each Sunday than this current staff does. And I see it evidenced by the fact that I wouldn't say Brock Purdy is more physically gifted of an NFL player than Justin Fields is. I wouldn't say Geno Smith is a more physically gifted player than Justin Fields. And you're talking about Puka Nacua, right? Like an undrafted receiver, and he's catching 15 balls a game, and Sean McVay's got him in a one-touchdown game versus the Shanahan and the Niners, who everyone expects the Super Bowl contender. Coaching matters. And, if I could just lastly say, guys, we want to talk about, like, decision-making. The coaching staff, they have to bring someone to the table. It's like McVay's pulling out 15 targets a game for this guy, but it's like, where's Zach Pickens? Where's Dexter? It's like those guys were taken over John Michael Schmitz, who is a very clear plug-and-play center from Minnesota, who the Giants took in the second round, And it's just like year after year we talk about the evaluation and the decision-making. And it starts at the top, and you have to get it right. But coaching matters more than anything else, in my opinion, over the talent that you have in the NFL relative to other sports. That's why I was a big proponent of looking at Jim Harbaugh. I mean, the guy won 3 of the 4 years. He was at the NFC Championship game with the Niners. I know he wears people thin, but still, it's like results matter. And it just seems like the Bears have once again begun a very broken process. And I wish we had a new ownership group that saw that for what that was worth and to finally get it right.
Phil, good call. Thank you. Let's go to Charles on 290. Charles, you're on ESPN 1000.
Hey, guys. Appreciate you taking my call. Sylvia, I'm just like you, man. I'm such a Fields guy. I loved the draft pick when it was made. And he, by far, is just the most talented quarterback prospect the Bears have ever had. And to this point, I cannot believe what I'm watching, like what I'm seeing on Sundays. I mean, he's gotten to the point where he's not doing the basic things that, second-string NFL quarterbacks do. And it's like, how are we here again? It just boggles my mind. And, I mean, it's week 2, and we have people already talking about drafting Caleb Williams. And we're already looking at taking, hypothetically, the thought is, it's coming up. I can't believe it. So hopefully I'm not alone, but it's wild.
I think we're all in shock.
Listen, when you talk about talent, my assumption is you're talking about physical talent.
Yeah, he checked all the boxes.
But there is something to being a football player and position specific that goes beyond talent. Like nobody would have ever said Tom Brady was the most talented quarterback. Nobody would say that about a lot of the guys. I mean, Phil just called about Purdy. Nobody said that about Geno. Nobody said. So you can have all of the talent. Chase Claypool was kissed by the football gods. He's 6'4" and 215 pounds and runs a 4.45. Who's the kid from the Rams that Phil referenced? He was a 5th-round pick.
Puka.
Doesn't mean that because you have all of that physical skill that it's going to translate to you being a fantastic football player. You still have to have a knack for your position, and you still have to be good at the sport, despite the fact that you're enormously talented physically.
It is a case study that I don't think we can ever study.
No,
like with that. If Tom Brady doesn't end up with Bill Belichick at that time, does Tom Brady ever get a chance? Does you know what I mean? I know he was pretty good at Michigan, and
right. Well, it's like Purdy,
like
Brock Purdy, but Brock Purdy was a successful college quarterback at a Division I school.
Right, but if he goes somewhere other than Shanny's offense,
He may not.
He's he's Mr. Irrelevant. Does he even make a roster somewhere else?
It's a great point. You've got to find a spot that works for you, but Brock Purdy drops back and rips 20-yard ends.
Right. Because you've got an offensive genius there.
Well, because the quarterback also understands that open is open. I don't care if it's
right.
Deebo Samuel or it's Dante Pettis.
But that same franchise is also the same franchise that gave away 3 first-round picks.
They make
for
mistakes.
No, I know that. That's what I mean. That like no one's
right.
So they could coach him up. There was a problem with the evaluation.
No
I'm
question.
not arguing with you. I'm just saying that.
My point is that let's give Brock Purdy some credit for being good at the position. He may not wow you, but he's good at playing quarterback. Like what you're trying to find is a guy who's good at playing quarterback and also has all of these natural gifts. That's the ultimate combination. It's Patrick Mahomes.
Well, like is Geno good now because he's been around the block and he's learned, or because now you finally found a spot with a great head coach in Seattle who has given him what he's long been after almost a decade in the league?
It's a good
Do you know what I
question.
mean?
Yeah.
Like that's what I mean.
You have to find a good spot.
He was considered one of the bigger busts in the NFL until now.
No doubt. You've got that's why I said it there, and you said it. It's a nuanced conversation. I just don't think you can be locked in on any one thing. It can't be that this guy's a great athlete, but he's got questionable, quarterback talent. It can't be that he's got a great quarterback grain, but doesn't have any natural skill. It's got to be a combination of everything. Only the great ones stand out above without regard to the external stimulus. Like that's why I resist the thought that Mahomes wouldn't be good here, like because he defines the position in so many ways.
One of the greatest ever.
But there's only a handful of guys that actually can succeed in a consistent environment or in a consistent way, and most guys need it all to fall in place.
See, like Fields had the great arm. Fields has the size. He's got the athleticism. He's a worker.
Yes.
He's a leader.
Yep.
And then the aptitude test, he did very well on. By that, I meant he checked all the boxes. He had the smarts. He had the athleticism. He had the arm. He's got the size. Like he has, if you created a quarterback in a lab, he's close to checking every box that you would want checked.